Hey guys, it's Jonathan here from Guitar Tips Weekly. I was just fooling around there with a chord progression, incidentally, that I just made up, and I thought, well, maybe it would be helpful for some of you if we talked about, how can you start just improvising on your own? When, personally, I just love grabbing a guitar and just doing something like that. Come up with a brand new chord progression right off the bat, something new and interesting. It's fun to play, rehearsed songs as well. That's a good learning thing, of course, but and should be part of your, what you can do on the guitar and how you practice. But at the same time, I think it's really valuable to, exercise those little gray cells up there that kind of force you into new and creative areas with your guitar. And I wanted to give you a tool that you can use to do that. And I've touched on it briefly in the past, and I touch on it more over at 145.com. But basically, what I was doing there is I started off with a chord, E minor. Okay, now that chord is related to a scale, and in this case I was looking at the E minor diatonic scale. Okay, so, and I've taught the diatonic scale before. If you want a refresher on that, just go to guitartipsweekly.com and do a search for diatonic and you'll find it. But what the scale looks like and sounds like is just like that. Okay, now it's important to note that all of the notes that you play in a particular key, all of the notes that build the chords in that key, those notes all come directly out of the scale. Okay, so if we're talking about E minor, you can see that those notes that are part of that chord, those notes are part of the scale, right? And we can play them individually and it sounds cool too, like what I just did there. So if we want to kind of add a little extra special sauce there to that chord, what we can do is play around with the other notes that are available to us in that scale that we haven't used yet and see if any of those things sound good. So what I did in this case is I thought, let's try a couple of those notes. And so if you look on the B string, the notes out of the scale are B, C, and D on the second string there. So you can actually play them right along with that chord and it actually ends up sounding quite nice. And what I was doing there is I just basically using my two middle fingers here for the chord and then using my index finger and my pinky finger to get those other notes there on the B string. But so that little bit that I was playing at the beginning, what I'm doing is I'm adding a C to my E minor chord. And that's actually, if you look at the E minor scale, the C is the sixth. So I'm adding a sixth to my E minor chord. The actual theory, the numbers and all that stuff isn't necessarily super important as long as it sounds good from your perspective of making something up, right? But you need to know the general principle that kind of governs where these things come from is that you can use the notes that are in the scale, right? So even if you don't know how to name the chord, you can still come up with a cool chord that you can use as kind of the foundation for a riff or for a song, something like that. So then I was thinking, well, what are the other chords in the key? So I just started using some of those and doing the same thing. You see how I was using all different notes along with those other chords. The other chords were C and D. I was just playing them in the open positions, but I was adding in or taking out, for that matter, notes that were in the scale. And by taking out, I simply mean, like with the D, if I drop out the the second fret on the first string, which is an F sharp. If I drop that out, you know, obviously I'm replacing that with an E, which is also in the scale too. So sounds cool. Or with the D, you could add in a G, which is on the third fret. Can you see how those sound really good together? And all it's doing is taking notes that are already present within that scale and just substituting them in different places. So hopefully that gives you some ideas that you can work with, that you can come up with your own riffs or your own chord progressions perhaps that are kind of built around a little bit of a theme. Like this one kind of really was built on that idea of, you know, just adding that extra note. And then I kind of took that further with the C too. And in the case of the C, I was adding a D that was here, right? But again, the reason why I chose to add that D, not because anything special, but it's just I was just looking at the scale and I thought, well, what notes in the scale are, you know, easily accessible for my pinky to play? Because my pinky is basically the only finger that I had left, and so I knew I couldn't, you know, play something in some bizarre place. So I just looked at the remaining notes left in the scale and thought, where can I play, you know, what's available to me, and just start trying stuff. That's really awkward. But it sounds okay still. The point is that you can add in any of those notes from the scale and it will sound good. So it's Jonathan here from GuitarTipsWeekly.com. You can head on over, enter your name and email address and sign up, and I'll send you a free guitar video every week. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit that yellow subscribe button because I got a lot more on the way. See you again next time.